a God of War side project rumored to be in the works. This is, of course, written by our very own Connor Elliott. Over at Substack, twopennygamesnews.substack.com. You can find all of the stories that we read here on the podcast. Make sure you subscribe over there. Take a read and a gander for yourself. Sony is reportedly creating a new side story project in the Greek setting of the God of War franchise, according to Giant Bomb's Jeffrey Grubb. Responding to his own post on Blue Sky concerning a prior rumor that a remaster collection would be unveiled during God of War's 20th anniversary, Grubb reports that the side project will be potentially showcased at a later date. Quote, I was never told about a remaster collection, but I asked a source about the rumors that I saw were focused on a collection, and they told me that nothing God of War would happen at the State of Play, but something could show up at the anniversary, Grubb posts in a reply. While the showcase didn't contain an announcement, a reveal at a yet-to-be-scheduled State of Play might substantiate the speculations. Sony had previously canceled a God of War live service game from Bluepoint in January of this year.
So this is a very bare-bones story.
It is, yes. But there's a couple other things to pull here. I looked it up. The God of War anniversary is March 22nd. So we're recording this on the 24th. So the actual anniversary has come and gone. The only thing that they've done is I think they've put out like some merch that you can buy and so forth, and they've put out some skins and different customizable stuff in God of War Ragnarok that you can equip when you can have Kratos have a cool like black and gold skin, and then the weapons have skins, and then Freya and Atreus have skins. That you can go in and equip in the game now. So that's fun for those who are into it. Connor, there have been rumors of a God of War remaster collection, I want to say, for years. At least for like the last like 2 years, I want to say. This is just something that pops up in the rumor mill, disappears, comes back, goes away, comes back, goes away. So I don't know if they're like... I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it's a thing that's happening. I assume it is just because it's been in the rumor mill so much. That it's happening, and it's a more substantiated rumor and a more realistic thing to happen than say like a Bloodborne remaster. I think, it just makes sense to put out at least the first 3 God of War games, in some sort of remastered collection, especially because the new series that they're telling with the Norse mythology is still rooted in that Kratos. That's the same Kratos from the Greek games. And so now I got to look at what Jeff Grubb is saying here, where he's saying, hey, doesn't seem like the remaster collection is happening yet. He says specifically on Blue Sky, I quote, I think that those God of War remaster rumors just jumped the gun a little bit. That stuff will happen closer to this. I assume he's talking about
the anniversary
or something like that. And then he goes, okay, and then he doubles back and says, okay, there's a new side story project coming later this year is what he's saying. Now, whether it comes this year or next year, that's for higher powers to decide on for that, right? Like if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. My thing about it is that I do believe it is happening. I do believe it's a thing. Jeff Grubb, known video game insider, we've reported on his breaking news and different stories that he's done numerous times. And I fully believe that he's on the money here, that there's something coming. I do believe it's a game. I think he did later confirm that it is in fact a game. I saw some conversation online of happening. Maybe it's just called, they're just calling it a story project, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's a game. He said no, it's a game and it's coming. So I fully believe that. The thing is what form, what shape does this take form in? Jesus, this is the most violent sneezes I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Violent, yep.
Most recently, we had God of War Ragnarok Valhalla, which was a little side mode within God of War Ragnarok. Took about 3 to 5 hours to complete, if my memory serves me correctly, in which it was sort of a roguelike mode that you were running around. Same mechanics, same combat, same gameplay as God of War Ragnarok. Gave you a little bit more extra story stuff that you could do. It was really, really good. It was really, really good. And
I still need to play it.
Oh, I hard recommend for anybody and everybody who's a fan of this series to play that, because it's dope. It's really, really dope. I don't think we're getting that. this sounds and feels a little bit bigger. This does feel like a standalone title. So now you got to start wondering, okay, in what sense? Is it like a DLC release to Ragnarok that you do have to pay for? Maybe it's that. Is it a standalone game that's a little smaller in size and scope, a la Spider-Man Miles Morales or an Uncharted Lost Legacy? Maybe.
You piece of fucking shit. I told you that last night. You stole what I was going to say.
Maybe. Hold on. This is not a competition. I've got one more in here. I've got one more in the chamber here, and then we're going to go back and talk about all of it, right?
Yeah.
It could be that. Or is it something else entirely? In the sense of like a prequel game kind of connecting 3 and 2018, or is it something else with Atreus doing something in the Greek world, kind of identifying with himself? I'm curious. I have a little theory that I did steal from the internet. In the Kind of Funny spoiler cast, I believe his name is Eric Williams, who was the director of God of War Ragnarok, praised and has a lot of love for Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And so I'm curious with where we are with Metroidvanias right now in the industry, where like they're popular, but I wouldn't say that they're super oversaturated. Like we're not getting a whole lot of them, but we're getting some at a pretty substantial pace. Last year we got Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Hollow Knight's out here doing the Hollow Knight stuff. We're supposed to be getting the new Hollow Knight at some point. And you're muted.
Did you see the recent news about that? I didn't
there was
during the piggyback.
There was some updated thing or whatever. That, something got updated. That's happened before.
But it's the first time since 2019, as far as like Silksong is concerned. So I think it's coming this year.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Fair enough.
At this point, wouldn't be surprised if it got canceled.
No, it's not getting canceled.
I'll believe it when I see it.
I guess we will.
You know, the dev team behind Celeste was supposed to put out a game this year, and then they broke up and canceled the game. So, there's that. Off of things like Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, I think it would make sense that we get sort of that style of the game here. That director's really, really fond of that gameplay style. Here, go make your own in the world of God of War, you know, in something like that. I think it'd be really fun to, like, be, I don't know, Kratos with maybe with the Blades of Chaos and running around a Metroidvania 2D world. And it kind of explains the backstory of how he got from Greek to the Norse mythology, and then most of it takes place in the Greek. Possible. I also think it's also just as possible that we're playing as Atreus. This is him kind of becoming Loki as his own person, and he's exploring his Greek side and sort of the history of his father and playing into that. I think that's a little weird, especially with how we left off the Greeks in God of War 3. Spoilers. It's not a good place to be. Very not good. The world ends. So I don't know how they would do that, but of course they can always take creative license and do whatever they want with that. Connor, where are you at with any of this?
Well, to piggyback off what you were just saying, as far as, you know, Greece being destroyed, I think that would work into what exactly they are planning with Kratos, which is him becoming an actual, well, spoilers for those who haven't played Ragnarok, I guess. They basically set up how he's going to be a more traditional god, except like a good one that people actually follow and worship and is deserving of that worship, as a redemption for Kratos. And I feel like that is going to tie into Greece, because in the newer games, he kind of talks about people that sometimes were in the original games, like, for example, the ship captain, or there is this, I think it was connected to this boss that you fight in one of the God of War games. I think he brings him up, how it was actually just a Greek, like a Spartan. It was the last Spartan.
Yes. Well, no, you're talking about, that Greek warrior, and he tells a story at the end of 2018. That's not in the games.
Okay. Well,
that was
either way,
that was invented for 18.
Either way, Kratos does have a lot of regret due to what he had done in Greece, and it would make sense that if, you know, he's going to become this new leader of a god, he would either try to include the people that are left on Greece who are, you know, left devastated by Kratos' actions, or he'd make up for it in some way, since he is directly responsible for that. And, you know, clearly as Kratos' journey has been going so far, he would want to take the chance to right his wrongs if possible. And I think it would be interesting to go into a question of redemption on whether you could be redeemed about something that you can't take back. even if you're able to make amends for it, is that enough to compensate for the massive destruction that he caused in the events of 3? But as you were saying with the side scroller, the Metroidvania, that'd be a lot more of an interesting way to take it, since we're so often getting these God of War style games, big budgets, very cinematic. It looks super nice, a lot of mocap going on. You can skirt around that by still continuing the story of what God of War is going to be from here on out, because I don't think it's going to be I guess there is the chance it could be about his time in between 3 and getting to where he is in God of War 2018. That would be interesting, but I feel like most likely they would make it something new to tack on to all of this extra stuff that they're doing with Kratos and with Atreus. It's really just a question of which one would you play as. I think whatever, like God of War as it's going to continue, is going to still have Atreus and Kratos be the characters that you play as, but I think it would be beneficial to, like a Miles Morales game, to get Atreus more landed down on what kind of character he's going to be in. Because in Ragnarok, he's fun to control, but he's definitely only developed so much to where you play him in certain segments. He wouldn't be able to as effectively carry him through a whole game as you would, when you're playing with Kratos in Ragnarok or 2018. So I think they would benefit in the same way that they did with Miles Morales to, kind of hammer out what exactly is going to differentiate him between his counterpart, which I think is a lot easier in this sense because Atreus is vastly different from a Miles Morales Spider-Man versus a Peter Parker Spider-Man. But to get back earlier to your point, I think it'd be, cool to do something that's not in the traditional God of War, way, whether it's a side scroller or a fucking puzzle game, I guess you could make a tactical game. You could go a lot of different ways with it because it is just a side story, side project deal. And no one expects it to be exactly like God of War as it's been up until this point. And so you have a bit more room to wiggle.
Right. Yeah. And that's where I'm at. Like, it being a side project, to me, tells me that we're going to do something different. I don't think we are progressing Kratos' story in this side project. Like, I think we're going to not even see modern day Kratos, current Kratos, in this game, really at all. Maybe like at the end as a buffer of like, all right, now we're going on an adventure or something like that, But I would guess that we don't see modern Kratos at all in this game, which puts me to because everything you said, Connor's great. That's a main game. That's the next game. That's the end of a trilogy. And I know they didn't go out when they started the 2018 thing thinking that they were going to do a trilogy. They've said that Ragnarok is the end of the Norse duology in that. So, maybe we jump to Egyptian myth, which is something that we know they played with in the beginning stages of producing 2018. Maybe we do come back to Greece and he redeems himself in Greece. That doesn't excite me so much. But again, all of this would be the next game, Or maybe he stays in Norse land and he creates a mythology of his own. I could see that very much as well. And just everything we've heard, everything we know about Norse mythology is just kind of pushed to the side. And we invent new tales, which I believe is actually how Norse mythology kind of works structurally. It's all based on interpretation and word of mouth and delivering, progressing the story forward and so forth. It's not like as set in stone as things like a Greek or an Egyptian mythology or any type of modern Western mythologies are also created. It's not as set in stone.
It's inherently baked into the idea that Ragnarok was going to come at some point, whereas I don't recall that ever being in Greek or Egyptian myth. I mean, of course, there's things that are like,
there's always an end of the world.
Yeah, there is. Like the chaos god Apophis, I believe his name is, giant snake that could devour the world. I don't know if there's a doomsday counter on that god, but I think Atreus is probably the path they would go with because, again, not only can you develop that character in terms of gameplay, but you can also do kind of, going back again to some non-traditional God of War game, him being able to turn into animals, you could play around with that a bit more and make it its own like unique style of game in exploring Atreus exploring his roots. Because obviously he's saying that it's set in Greece. We don't know that any more than we know that there's actually a side project coming out. But it makes sense. A lot of people have a lot of fondness for Greece in general, not even connected to the God of War franchise. But when you get into that, fans liked that setting. And since they don't really elaborate on it in some of the older games, and I'm saying this as someone who hasn't played them, I just know enough about them that they don't go into the real deep impacts of Kratos' choices at the end of 3 or over the course of 3. So, having Atreus get back to his roots in some way or form, and understand who Kratos is, because up until like the entire course of 2018 and Ragnarok, he's finding out who his father is, finding out that he's a god, finding out that he's from a different pantheon, finding out that he did all of these horrible things. And that's one thing, but it's another thing to actually see it and fight enemies that maybe associate Atreus with Kratos and want to do him harm, just by extension to do Kratos harm. That seems like a more interesting way to return back to the Greece mainland, while still being a side project.
So I'm wondering, stick with me here. I'm writing in real time here. All right. So I'm wondering if, yes, Atreus is our main guy, probably we switch up gameplay in a dramatic way and it's just a completely different type of game here. I would assume I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. I was thinking about the idea of sort of a prequel game where we show the connection of 3 to 2018. That's not a very interesting question to me. Personally, and I get the feeling that Santa Monica kind of feels that way too, because they would have answered it if they found the question interesting by now, and they have just chosen not to. But it is a question that fans want to know. How did he get here? That's a question that the fans want to know. So I'm almost curious if we do a game where you play as Atreus, he somehow discovers a way to travel to the Greek lands. And in Ragnarok, we play with time, like a lot. Like we play with time. I don't 100% remember the mechanics of all the time traveling that happens, but the World Serpent, for example, travels back in time, gets zapped out of his time and put somewhere else. And then I think there's a couple of other instances of some time travel-y stuff happening, or at least like the conversation of time travel happening. So I'm almost curious if, Connor, stick with me, we are Atreus, and either in sections of the game or the game in its entirety, I don't know, we, as Atreus, are traveling Greek ruins, and there are sections of the games where we travel back in time to before Kratos does all the damage, and Kratos is sort of a enemy that we have to run away from. He doesn't know, but he's just this rage monster that you can't really do anything to because he's the god of war, and Atreus is Atreus. And so it's just these moments of like running, well, we got to get away. And Atreus witnesses the atrocities firsthand. And so we get sort of a double dip of really cool information that the fans want to know. How did Kratos get here? Probably, at the end of the game, that question is answered. We get some narrative progression in the sense of Atreus growing, maturing, understanding his own history better. And then we get another dip of nostalgia. This is the moment Kratos attacks Olympus with the Titans. This is the moment where Kratos rides the giant horse things in God of War 2. Yeah. This is the moment where Kratos
Ares
takes a woman and sticks her in a gear and and or maybe Atreus jumps in and stops him or something like that, to save the woman's life. And I don't know, a bunch of things, right? That all of these different moments and things can happen, and in that there's just moments where we also get the joy of the player to be on the other side of things, which I don't believe we've had before. No. To my knowledge, we've always been in Kratos' shoes outside of the moments in Ragnarok.
I think one of the technical exceptions is in one of those spin-off games, the one with the Fates. The final fight is you trying to stop them from making Kratos die, and it takes place during the fight against Ares. Like, I think their boss fight happens with the backdrop of that occurring. I think so. I can't remember.
I don't know. That's another nostalgia moment of the battle with Ares. That we could do, the opening of God of War 2, all the highlights that we could kind of visit and see. And, the opening of God of War 2 is iconic. Several other set PC moments in 2 is iconic. Most of 3 has a bunch of really cool moments that you could pull from to be like, oh, yeah, I remember this. And we get our member berries, we get our story progression, and we get some questions answered. and I think it kind of just hits all the notes. That would be cool. I think something like that.
And the driving point here is that you can do a lot with this. And Santa
100%.
Monica, I'm assuming Santa Monica would be in charge of it. They could outsource it to some other developer. I mean, they got Sony behind them, so they got a lot of studios under their belt.
They're big enough. We know that they work on multiple projects at one time. We know there's a Cory Barlog game in the works right now that I think it's a new IP. It's not a God of War game. I think it's going to be a while before we get a new full-fledged AAA, all the bells and whistles God of War. It's going to be a while until we double back to that. So here's a little appetizer, something that can kind of hold us over for a few more years.
Indeed. It'll be interesting to see if it actually comes into fruition in the first place. I'll double pretty far back to the whole entire thing about the collections real quick. The remaster collection.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think that it's not going to happen because in the tweet he's talking about, he says it's never been confirmed. He's never been told that's in the process of being made. And it seems like it's just ripe for being announced at the 20th anniversary that just occurred. Like it just works, it's the anniversary. Here's all the games that you can play. And that's something that fans definitely want. It makes sense that they'd want to do a remaster collection. I just feel like they would have announced it now, if not at all.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I totally see that. I do believe that this collection exists in some form or another, and they're holding it in their cards for whatever reason. Whenever they need, a little bit more money in their pocket, they'll put it out. Or maybe it's like currently in development right now. I don't know. I don't know. I think it just makes too much sense. Kratos has too much PlayStation weight, too much PlayStation history in him. Yep. I mean, you're talking 4 generations of PlayStation have been, semi-centered around Kratos. A little less with the PlayStation 3 generation, but 2, 4, and 5 definitely have had Kratos be front and center.
Yeah.
So I think it's only a matter of time before we see a collection of that exist. Now, is it going to happen in the next year or two? I don't know. Maybe not. But by 2030, which would be the 25th anniversary, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see.
Indeed.